Can I just say that I'm really impressed that you're choosing to focus on your strengths rather than correct a weakness? As a leadership focus, I think that's a great way to begin. My name is Alan Kelsey, Chief Contributor of LeadingLeaders.net, and welcome to Leading with Your Strengths. Today we're going to cover three primary areas: what leading with your strengths does, what leading with your strengths is not, and what you have to have in order to lead with your strengths. So let's talk about what leading with your strengths does. Leading with your strengths is like having your cake and eating it too. So let me explain. Your strengths make you uniquely capable of making a great contribution. It's your way of offering the very best of what you have in the service of others. And so you can rest knowing that you've given the very best that you have. But the extra surprise is that it actually feels fantastic when you do what you're great at. And so when you use the gifts that God tooled into you, He has set it up so that it feels fantastic. And this is especially important because it's a very sustainable form of leadership. These days, we're all being asked to do more with less. And that usually translates to squeezing more out of people, including yourself. And so if you're going to give of yourself and give more than you ever have, then at least get the reward that God intended. Use your strengths, offer your very best to the world, and get replenished through the joy of doing what you do best. That's one of the values of leading with your strengths. Next, let's talk about what leading with your strengths is not. Now, let's distinguish between strengths, skill, experience, and knowledge, and authority. And because we can lead from any one of these places. So let's start with authority. Leading from an authority base is kind of rules-based. It's like a command. It's all about instruction and execution. It demands obedience, and it's loaded with consequence should the follower not comply. So there's very little room for creativity in there. It's probably more management than leadership. The next one is leading from experience, skill, or knowledge. All of these are viable contributors, but they're often isolated or very specific. So for example, I may have experience leading children in the nursery, but that doesn't necessarily translate into strong adult leadership. My experience there is specific to the nursery, and so it's somewhat isolated. Now the final one is leading from your strengths, which is much more internal and enduring. And if I have a strength to think strategically, I can bring that talent to bear on any role in my life. It's not grounded in a specific experience, but rather it's a part of who I am. And so it's repeatable in any circumstance as I choose, and has much more freedom and feels far more natural. So leading with your strengths is different than using experience or authority. Next, let's talk about what you have to have in order to lead with your strengths. The answer is simply language. You have to have a common language. Leaders aren't much good without followers, and so leading with your strengths has a follower implication also. How do I show those I'm leading how to use their strengths as they lead? Now, you may know what your strengths are, but how do you share them with others? Does that language allow them to share their strong points with you in a way that provides a common understanding? This point is especially important because if you're the only one who knows where you're strong, then how can the team around you support you in your strengths? How can they inspire you in your strengths? They have no language to interact with you around your strengths. Furthermore, if you don't know what their strengths are, how can you inspire them? What shared language or words do you use to speak to a strength and call it out in someone that you're leading? For this reason, I really advocate using Gallup's StrengthsFinder assessment to identify strength. It's a very simple, scalable, and simple assessment that produces immediate results and boils them down to 5 easy words. This makes it easy to remember where people are strong, and it injects a new language into an organization that becomes a common tool for describing and interacting around strength. Leaders and followers then use the same language to describe their strength. You can then lead using that language, and everyone in the organization understands precisely what you're talking about. You can also empower others to act on their strengths, and the whole organization will have a clear expectation of what action is coming because of the shared strengths language. You need to have a strengths language in order to be able to lead with it. Finally, using your strengths is as much about joy as it is about accomplishment. It's about how you feel when you do what you do best. The fact of the matter is that when you use the talents that God gave you, it just feels great. God has wired you in such a way that when you function in the gifting He built into you, your strengths, it rewards you with a sense of well-being, a sense that what you're doing is right and good. It's just good leadership to put your best out there as an example of what you expect from others. Not just in terms of productivity, but that you want their maximum joy also. This is critically important in leadership because the currency of a leader is trust and authenticity. And so followers are reluctant to follow if they sense a lack of authenticity or trustworthiness. And a leader who is boldly engaging in their strength and is transparent enough to show their joy in it will be seen by their followers as authentic and believable. And so they'll be far more inclined to follow. And so, in a sense, leading with your strengths is a fast track to equity with your followers and joy in the process. So do what you do best. Show others how to do the same. And watch the level of engagement of your people and your staff increase.